We're going to hear about the insights in this amazing speech that you gave for a graduation ceremony. Talk to us about this way that you spoke to these young folks about how every generation complains about the mess that the last generation is leaving them, which of course would be very
Yes,
easy a complaint and true for this
totally.
Gen Z that's in high school and college right now. But you have such
Yeah.
a great take on that.
Well,
Tell us.
thanks. It's yes, I mean, no doubt. I mean, you're sitting there as an 18-year-old and you're looking at this late 50s gray-haired guy and thinking, "Oh, this guy's gonna preach to us, and he's left us with this burden of climate change and political division." And, my point to them was, "Fair point, but welcome to the club." Every generation has been left a mess by the one before, and I just quickly used my dad's side of my family, and I tried to say, "This is not because they were exceptional, it's because they were typical." And my grandfather got out of University of Vermont and went to France to fight some of the worst battles of World War I, which is a war that was started by his parents' generation, but fought by his. And then his oldest son, my uncle, left his high school graduation, 18 years old, to fight the tail end of World War II, a war that was started by his dad's generation, but fought by his. And then not many years later, my dad gets out of the University of Vermont and gets shipped off to fight in Korea. And all, we're product of the Cold War that was started by his dad or grandparents' generation. So, and then you fast forward to today and how fortunate we are. My oldest brother missed the Vietnam draft by 3 years, and there are a lot of problems going on in the world. But that group of high school seniors is not thinking about going off to fight in war necessarily. There may be some who decide to enlist, but it's way more the exception. And so then the other thing I thought of was when I was 18, and I looked it up, when I was sitting in that chair to graduate from high school, we had apartheid, we had the Berlin Wall, we had AIDS rampaging. We didn't even know what it was at that time. We had the height of the Cold War. We were boycotting each other's Olympics. My summer reading book one year was Fate of the Earth, which was about nuclear annihilation. Remember the movie The Day After? I mean,
Yes,
and
right.
when it comes and we own we did not do a great job with climate change, but when I was graduating from high school, the environmental concerns were acid rain and the ozone layer. So I had this list and I thought about it. It's like they've all been addressed. Every issue I just described has been addressed. And back to the definition of optimism, it didn't just happen. It happened because people voted and they marched and they researched and they ran their businesses in a way that worked towards solving some of these things, and politicians negotiated, and all those things have been fixed. So, class of 2023, you're next in line for takeoff, and get to work. So that was sort of the message I was trying to give, and I don't know how many of them even listened. I got some nice notes from parents and uncles and that sort of thing, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a real privilege, and I was glad to be able to share that.
The decade, you and I are both a little bit too young to have been conscious of any of this, but the decade that amazes me is the decade that we decided to put a man on the moon.
Oh yeah,
At the
right.
same time, the 60s, yeah, we were little, or you may not have even been born, but think about the 60s. There were
Oh,
three, or you can
yeah,
count many more, but three
right.
major assassinations. There was do you know the largest hurricane ever to hit the United States happened in the 60s?
I did
There was
not.
Kent State. So
Sure.
you've got just after
Oh,
college kids like I do. How would you like it if you had kids in college during the Kent State thing and they were literally shooting college kids?
Linda, I was born in, I'll just say, in 1966 in Detroit. We lived there during the riots in the late 60s,
Yeah.
and when people say this country's never been more divided.
Yeah.
My history, I mean, it's easy to jump to the Civil War,
Yeah.
but the late 60s, I mean, the Democratic Convention in 1968, I mean, the world between Vietnam and the hippies and the assassinations and civil rights, it was a cauldron. And
And yet we shot for the moon.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
And yet we did that thing. And then the ozone layer, that's a whole nother thing
Yeah,
that's lost to history as well. That
right.
we were literally creating a hole that got way bigger than Antarctica
Yeah.
before the whole world agreed that we were absolutely driving ourselves over a
Yeah.
cliff, and then the whole world reined it in. And I'm not sure what the
Yeah.
statistics are on that, but it's pretty much closed now. So we
Yeah.
can do these hard things together, and we can
Exactly.
do them during the worst times.
Exactly. And we tend to, it's understandable, I think, but we tend to not celebrate those things and we take them for granted. And that's one of the things I try to do in the work I'm doing now is just remind people of all these benefits. And so back to, we can lament technology and the internet and social media, but here we are. I'm in New York, you're in northern Vermont. We're talking to each other. This is going to go out on a platform where literally just about anyone in the world can watch it. I don't know how many will, but it's incredible, and we take it for granted, or worse, we just constantly badmouth it. And so we have to, I think, every once in a while stop, and again, back to why this is such a great time to be alive is appreciating those things.
Yeah. I'm gonna remind people of an episode we just did. If you're still not buying our our optimism about the next generation, I interviewed two key people at what's called the Do Good Institute on the
Oh,
campus
nice,
of the University of Maryland.
nice.
Oh my gosh, Bill, I've got goosebumps just thinking about that interview. The University of Maryland has nurtured this thing called the Duga Institute that's now like the first stop on the campus tours. And if
Nice.
I were taking a kid on the campus tour, they'd
Yeah,
be already signed up after I saw the Duga Institute. But it's catching on so much. The students are causing a demand in every department for
nice.
some connection. I mean, mathematics and English, they're all
Yep.
connecting to this Dugan Institute that is about social change, and these young people are driving that. And I happen to know it's catching